Ladies and gentlemen, Imogen here, day 206 of the Girls Are Cool podcast.
And my name is Andy.
Hi, Andy.
Technically, this is my podcast.
Hey, Andy. I like your podcast, Andy.
I talk about sex.
Do you like sex, Andy? What's it like having sex as a man? Andy, seeing as though you're being a smartass now and pretending to be, you're claiming to be a man.
I'm being a smartass.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad you admit to it. So, what's it like being a man? If you know everything about being a man, what's it like? What's it like to put your penis in a female? What does that feel like?
It feels like conquering.
Don't just say things that you've heard me say before. If you're a man, you would know not to steal other people's shit. So we're going to talk about what the school system could be.
Mm.
And I think I make it pretty clear, maybe not on my podcast. I don't think I ever had or have on my podcast, but I make it clear to you that the education system is a fucking joke, just like pretty much everything that the government does. We're not going to go too deep on that shit, but like education system, generally speaking, sucks. And I'd even say most private schools suck as well.
Yeah.
Nowhere near as much as
from personal experience, someone who went to a private school, some bits were great. And I will say I'm aware of some bits that I got a lot more than other people would have.
Yep.
But that being said, still have to follow the same curriculum.
Yep.
They don't get to not teach us the dumb shit. They still have to. That we still do like the stupid standardized tests that the whole country does.
Yep. And we're not going to spend too long talking about the problems with school. We'll touch on them a little bit, but we'll just talk about we're just going to brainstorm. This isn't going to be like a well-researched. This will just be a bit more of like a ramble, but a bit more of a fun, chill, laid-back podcast. So, because I don't want this to be too negative either. So, there's obvious issues with school. The fact that it's literally prison. I'd say that's the first one.
Yeah.
That's your biggest. Like, I hated school.
I think the other being that everyone needs to conform to the same mold.
You all have to be. And now some of you listening, maybe you went to a cool school, but generally speaking, there's a lot of overlap between most schools. Like, you have to be there is the first one.
Yep.
Fitting in, as you're saying, especially in Australian schools where you all have to wear the same uniform, which is just like some fucking like Hitler shit. Like, why are we in prison? Why are we all wearing a jumpsuit?
I have different opinions about uniform, but
I fucking hate uniform. I hate anything that's conformative. I hate all this kind of shit. School also absolutely sucks at dealing with any sort of mental health issues, and in fact is a hotbed for mental health issues. You're putting people in prison, surrounding them by people that they don't necessarily like. The only reason you form friendships in school is because you're stuck in prison with those people. And I'm being extremely negative here, sure. But generally speaking, I think we can all agree that schools do not do a good job of caring for children's mental health at the point in time where they're most vulnerable.
Absolutely.
School does a terrible job of preparing you for the real world. In fact, it doesn't even try.
Mm-hmm.
It does a good job of preparing you for university, which at this point I'm pretty sure we could go on a big conspiracy theory and say school is basically like a pyramid scheme for universities. You're just like funneled into university. Like, man, imagine that your business, you have like all these like, you don't even have to like cold approach or cold call your clients, like your potential customers. They're just like funneled through to you. Like, universities must be sitting there laughing at this point in time. Like, all around the world, universities must be like, man, we like engineered the greatest like con in history. Like, we got every school to just like be convinced that we're like prestigious. To be fair, universities did used to be prestigious.
Yes.
At this point in time, there's so many nonsense degrees, and with the internet, you really don't need to go to university.
Can get in to university. It's not this like you have to.
It's not prestigious anymore.
Sure, certain schools and courses are harder to get into, but
yeah, for sure. And we're not talking about we're not talking about like medicine and engineering and shit. Sure, go to university for that.
Yeah, but there's a lot of fuck off courses. For example, and not to shit talk her, but the girl that we're seeing today is studying. What is she studying?
She's studying like fucking being a florist or something. And I was like, why are you paying for that? Like, you can just do that on the internet. You can just fuck around with plants. That would be like me going to university to learn how to be a coach, or me taking a podcasting course at university and paying like $20,000. And there are courses on that. I remember so many people when I first started photography would be like, oh, like are you studying that at university? And I was like, why would I go to university for 3 years and pay like $100,000 to learn what I've already learned by just doing it? So,
and yeah, there's so many online resources.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, in the age of the internet, the age of YouTube and all that, like you really don't need to be, going to university. School doesn't teach you any essential life skills like how to write a budget, how to get a job, how to be more positive, how to meditate, how to make friends. That's the biggest one that I think they fuck up.
Really big one.
I can't believe in school you're not taught how to make friends.
Yeah, I would even say like speaking from like my personal experience, I know a lot of schools do it, but we didn't have any compulsory like work experience.
Neither did we, yeah.
And I think that would have been just in terms of, I think from the socializing aspect, that's why I said it just then, because it teaches you how to interact with not only people that aren't your age, but just in different social circles, and it forces you to learn how to speak to other humans that aren't in this little culty environment.
And everything we're going to say here is kind of, we're operating under the premise that we're saying, how would we make the school system better? If it was up to me, there wouldn't be a school system, or school would be voluntary. And I wish my parents had homeschooled me, for instance. Like, I wish I'd had that. I wish desperately. One of our friends that we know is homeschooling his kid when he gets ready, and I'm like, holy fucking shit. I wish, like, I'd been homeschooled. Like, so we're operating under the premise that there has to be a school. So it's kind of like, how can we make the best of a bad situation here? We're saying, if school still exists, what changes could we make to make it a little better?
Sure.
We're not going to do anything radical like, say, let's live in a free libertarian society where, we all live in the woods and nobody has to go to school and stuff like that. Saying, how can we make the current school system better?
Mm-hmm.
Other things they don't teach you is like, just like basic things, like how to pay taxes, how to do your own laundry, for fuck's sakes.
I still
like how to find an apartment. Yeah, I know. How to improve yourself, how to go to the gym, how to lose weight. Why is how to lose weight not taught at school?
I think because
all the teachers are fat fucking lazy messes who work for teachers' unions and...
Partially that. And I also think that encouraging children to diet can... I'm sure there's ways to do it, but it can be harmful. Like, that's where I developed a lot of my...
That's children versus like high school. Remember that we're also talking about high school here.
Sure.
So we're saying up to age 18. An 18-year-old should know how to lose weight. By after 16, if you're fat at 16, like the world's in your hands, you can lose that weight. It's going to be hard because your parents are probably still feeding you and shit. But
of course. Yeah, I think just more... Because we already had, at least in my experience, compulsory subjects like geography and just weird ones that seemed a bit...
arbitrary and nonsensical.
Yeah. Whereas ones like health and psychology weren't, like, they were options. And I think teaching those seemed to be more important. Like I got a lot out of learning psychology. It was a bit boring. And
so we didn't have any of that. And some of this stuff that we're talking about, some people will probably leave a comment, I'm sure, and say like, oh, dude, like we did get taught that. Sure. But why isn't this in every school? Yeah. And I guess we're going to have the caveat of this is me talking about my schooling experience and yours as well.
And mine, yeah.
So this may not apply if you're not in Australia. It may be different if you go to a private school. If you're in a European country, you may listen to some of this and be like, they teach us all this, dude. Like, what are you talking about? It's like, this is my experience and your experience. Mm-hmm. Other things they don't teach you is how to lift weights, like how to get strong. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of Americans who will say like, dude, they do teach us that.
In like gym.
Yeah. I wish we had that here. It's not like they didn't teach us any of that stuff here. There was no weights room at school. I know in America, especially for like collegiate sports and stuff, like there's weight rooms. You can go lift weights at school, which blows my mind. I can't even imagine.
We had a little bit.
Then I'm fucking missing out, aren't I?
But yeah, it wasn't a focus. And they didn't teach you, I guess, how to lift weights. They kind of just let you fuck around in the gym.
Which is not the same thing. But that's still better than what I had. But I think the most important... Let's talk about like what we think the most important thing... Like, because I get the sense when you look at the curriculums, like the subjects that most schools teach, I think what they've just done is gone, okay, we have 6 hours a day, or is it 5 hours by the time you take out a lunch break or whatever? Roughly.
Our days were longer than that, but yeah.
Whatever. So it's like 6 hours. Yeah, maybe it's like 7 hours, but 6 hours after you take out all the breaks.
Sure.
So 6 hours, times 5, we have 30 hours of teaching a week.
Mm-hmm.
What can we fill that with? That's how I think they've done it. They've just gone, what should we fill that with? And they're like, geography, yeah, that'll do. Like this random subject, yeah, okay. English, yeah, that's cool. Let's teach them poems and shit. Like, rather than, so it's almost like and this happens a lot in like, I'm going to try not to go on a big fucking like,
because this
rant about
episode has the
government.
potential to
Yeah, I know. I could just go on this big
spiral.
rant about how government is. Most governments are incompetent as shit. The notion of government has to kind of be incompetent because you're getting free money by default.
Anyway,
so
that's
you're
a
not being
tangent
rewarded. No, but it is relevant here because the same thing happens with schools. There will always be children that need to go to school.
Yes.
You have made school mandatory in most countries.
Mm-hmm.
So you, by definition, have basically an infinite customer that if you have to fuck up your school so goddamn bad before you have no school children coming to your school and giving you money.
Yes.
You still get government grants and subsidies on top of that.
Yes.
So you have free money. So you have no incentive to be competent. That's the issue here. Go to a business that gets... Go to any business that... Go find a business that's like absolutely just like fucking up incompetently massively. And it's like that business doesn't survive for long. It might survive for 5 years or 10 years and then someone will come along and do it better. That's kind of the whole point. The problem here is that schools get free money. Anyway, that's kind of a tangent, but the point I'm getting here is I think they've looked at the 30 hours they have a week and then just said, like, what should we fill that with? Any random shit, rather than being like outcome focused, which would be, how can we make the best adults going forward? Like, what do we want society to look like? How can we give people the best opportunity to be happy? How can we figure out what they want? Like, yeah, they're only, 16, 18, sometimes younger than that. Like,
yeah.
But by the time they're 16 to 18, they'll have some idea of who they are as a person. It's not fully set in stone, of course not. That probably doesn't happen until your mid-20s. But rather than focus on like, all right, let's ask them what they want. Let's figure out what they want. Let's figure out what kind of people they want to be. And then let's help them with that. There's just this blanket, we'll just fill it with whatever like random arbitrary thing we think is interesting. And it's like, it's just the most arbitrary random shit. Like geography. Why the fuck is geography a subject that is taught? Yeah. And that was mandatory at my school. Mandatory.
It was
rocks.
For
why
us
am I
for
learning about rocks?
a couple of years too.
Like, why did we learn about rocks?
We've had this conversation a few times that, sure, it's good to know roughly what a map looks like so you're not that idiot that can, like, not point to your own country. Sure. But beyond that, knowing the types of rocks, the types of clouds...
We literally memorized all the different types of clouds. Like, in America, I know this is a meme where they're like, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Like, every American listening right now will know that fucking meme. It's like, why do you need to know that? Please explain to me why you know that. Why is that in your head? Why do you know that, but you don't know how to make friends? Why do you know that, but you don't know how to deal with depression? Why do people come to my website and say, hey, I have no idea how to talk to the opposite sex? Because you're not taught that in school. So those would be the things that would be... Let's go through a list. We'll spitball, we'll brainstorm. This whole podcast is a spitballing brainstorm. Let's spitball, like, I'll do one, then you do one. We'll go back and forth. It's like what we think are the mandatory. So maybe we'll come up with like 5... Doesn't have to be exactly 5, but like roughly. Yep. Like my first one is going to be how to make friends.
My next one would be like a mental health one.
So what specifically? Like how to deal with depression or?
I guess I'd split it into 2. One would just be like general psychology. Like we like stuff which I did learn, but that was like an elective.
We didn't.
Was like cognitive biases, like fallacies, all of that sort of stuff, like various experiments in terms of like authority. And
I still feel like that's starting to get too wanky, and that's my main problem with school, is that they teach you these like really focused, like narrowed down, really specific topics. So like rather than psychology, what about something like how to deal with depression, what to do if you're sad, what to do if you're anxious, what to do if you're scared, what to do if you're lonely.
Yeah, so that's why I say I would definitely split it into 2. One would be just like, how do I deal with my emotions? And you can teach that from
which is like still psychology, yeah.
Really, really early.
It's like applied psychology.
You could teach that to primary school kids.
Yes.
And then I think as you start getting older, I think it is, because that stuff like we personally talk about all the time is just like, how is my mind working?
Sure. As long as you're saying it in combination with the first thing you
Of
just said.
course. Yeah.
Okay, then that's fine. Yeah.
And how does it fit my day? Like, I definitely wouldn't teach it the same way I was taught it, where it's very dry.
Yeah, that it can't be like that. So I think that's my big problem with the school system is everything is from a textbook and it sounds like it's from a textbook.
Mm.
And there are some great teachers, of course there are.
Absolutely.
But a better way of doing it would be encouraging or screening for and hiring teachers who are able to get in a one-on-one or like, one-on-one preferably, but like just be able to relate to the kids and just be like, hey, like, if you're feeling depressed, like I had like one teacher who was like this and he's like, hey, if you're feeling depressed, like hit me up. I've been like that. But he wasn't like, I would have liked him to be even more than that.
Mm.
And I'd like most teachers to be like that. You see a kid that's struggling, you're just like, hey, like I noticed you're struggling. Like, what's up? You can talk to me. And the kid like obviously probably won't open up to you immediately. And you can be like, don't worry, I fucking hated school. I got to be honest with you. Like, and I was depressed like a year ago or like 2 years ago. My wife left me. I went through hell. Like teachers don't even try to relate. It's like they have to have this air of the expert or the air of authority where they like can't relate too much to the kids because then like they won't respect me. And it's like, bro, they'll respect you more if you just be human. You see that a lot with, I talked about this on the previous podcast I did by myself earlier today, that people who are experts, like who are in, my position, giving advice and stuff, they want to keep up this air of the expert. Like, I'm an expert. They can't be relatable. They can't talk about their mental health or their struggles or, their fuck-ups or their flaws because they want to look like the expert. They want people to respect them.
Mm. Definitely. And I think that, speaking from personal experience, I think I got a bit more of that.
Which is awesome. I wish that was encouraged more.
And a lot more one-on-one and all of that because that was encouraged.
You did go to a private school. Let's add that in. So that's probably something that happens more in private schools.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think we only got that, let's say, from ages 15, 16 through 18. Because
it's almost too late by then.
Yeah, because
it's still good. It's still better than
absolutely. And that's when they're trying to treat you more like an adult. But I think prior to that, very stock standard, like, I'm the teacher, you're the student.
Yeah, and I can't respect that. I can't be on board with that. This arrogant notion of like, I'm the expert. Because I hate experts. Like that's one of the things I hate most in the world.
Yeah.
Okay,
next class or compulsory.
my next one. So I said how to make friends, didn't I?
Yep.
You said how to, like, psychology, like how to deal with mental stuff.
Yeah.
I think everyone, like a bunch of people listening would be like, fuck yeah, that should be one.
Yeah.
Like mine would be, I don't know if I can cheat and say, because this will be like multiple, but I think, just hear me out here. I'm going to say life skills. And I know that's like a huge
broadest
broad
topic ever.
Because I don't think all the stuff in here would take like, 10 years of schooling.
Of course.
So things in there would be some of the stuff we talked about at the start, like how to do a budget.
Yep.
How to find an apartment or live with someone else, like how to have a roommate.
Oh yeah, I think finances is a really big one.
Finances should absolutely be fucking taught.
Like housing and accommodation.
For sure. How much does shit cost? Because kids have no idea. Like get them on board. How many... Like how many kids are walking around right now absolutely retarded to the idea of money? Like they literally can't understand. They would have no idea how much mum and dad earn each week. Why don't your kids know how much you earn each week? There's this weird notion of like, well, I'm the parent and they're the child. They shouldn't know that. And it's like, why? There's just that, and like in school as well. Why don't kids know the average earning? And I don't know how old they'd have to be to understand that. Maybe like 12, 10, 12.
How much money you earn? Taxes.
Yeah. How much do taxes cost? Where's that tax money going? Stuff like that. And I understand the current school system is not going to teach that. Because the kind of... But like, stuff like how to do your own laundry.
I think that was a good one that you touched on.
How to cook for yourself.
Really?
Why the fuck is cooking?
See, we had again, not compulsory. You could choose whether you did that.
So all this... I guess that's the point that I'm getting to. I don't know if we count it as like good enough if it's non-compulsory. I don't want anything to be compulsory. I don't like this idea of compulsory fucking subjects. But why have you made fucking geography compulsory? Why is English, and when I say English, it's not like the language. I'm sure like a lot of us listening will know exactly what I mean when I say classes of English. It's like reading fucking Shakespeare and like...
Yeah, it's very out of
writing
touch.
essays. That's not English. What the fuck is that? That's like essay writing.
And that's the thing. And you learn all of that, but yet those kids can't have a proper conversation with an adult.
Exactly.
Which defeats the whole...
Because you forgot to teach them. Okay.
Yeah.
That has to be one in here too. And maybe I'll like let you make one and then I'm going to say that next one. But my other one would be communication.
Communication. I think that comes with socializing, with conversation. Because I was
So
actually...
maybe that would be tied into my first one of how to make friends.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, what were you going to say?
I was going to say that one of the books that you recommend a lot, when I say no, I feel guilty, which I'm pretty much all the way through at this point. It actually breaks down conversation and just like someone says something, they've given you information, you like look at that information that they've given you and then you inquire further, like this is how a conversation works. And it was really interesting because I'd never thought of it in such a way. It just like happens. Yeah. And I think to actually know the really like like because you do it,
the structure of a conversation.
Yeah. I think would help. It's not because I think I struggled for a really long time.
It's almost like you have to like imagine the person is autistic. You have to like deal with an autistic person because they literally need to know this stuff. Like, how do I have a conversation? Yeah, and that's what kids are. Like the version of autistic. They are autistic. They're like emotional. They're relationship and emotionally stunted so far. Like they haven't fully grown. Just like an autistic person has to learn that shit manually. Yeah,
and which like I ended up doing through trial and error. But there was a lot of awkwardness and like self-doubt and like what's wrong with me, I don't know how to speak to people. Whereas I think just the really basics of conversation could have helped a lot with my like early social anxieties.
And that would kind of be tied into the one, you know, we said that before, that would be tied into like how to make friends. Other ones would be like how to deal with school. I know that's like too meta for the school system. They wouldn't be able to admit that like we might not be great. I get the feeling schools don't like to admit the fact that not everyone wants to be there. It's like this hidden elephant in the room. They just try and pretend isn't there. Like, we're all here. It's like you're all in prison and no one wants to admit you're in prison. You want to all just pretend that you're like at school. It's like, no, I'm in prison. Can I leave? No, then I'm in prison. Like, by definition, you have imprisoned me. I am imprisoned right now. I would like some acknowledgement of that. And I know there's a lot of guys listening to this who know exactly what I'm talking about. I know there's a lot of guys and girls that go to school and like, yeah, it's all right, it wasn't great. But I know there's a shit ton of people, because how many have I met that say like, that was 13 years of imprisonment and I want that time back. I know I'll never get that time back, but like, fucking hell, I was in prison for 13 years.
Yeah.
I was too. Like, that's how I felt. So some acknowledgement of that would be great. Like, here's how to deal with it. We're all kind of stuck here. I know it sucks. Here's how to get the most out of it. Here's how to make... These life skills would go a long way. Like, here's how to make friends. Here's how to deal with mental health and depression and stuff like that. Other life skills, I guess it would fall into psychology, is how to deal with the death in the family, how to deal with mummy and daddy divorcing. I guess that's my point. Like why
trauma and life events and like dealing with shit. Like, I think even things like creating a good routine, creating a strong like
brilliant. How to read self-help books. Literally, let's go through some Why is self-help not a fucking subject taught in school? It would be in the same vein as like psychology, like you said. But why are you reading The Great Gatsby? And like, these are good books, sure, but like, why read them in your own time? Why are you reading The Great Gatsby and this other book and that other book and this book and a book that the teacher happens to like? And why am I reading that instead of fucking The Slight Edge, or You Can't Afford the Luxury of a Negative Thought, or How to Win Friends and Influence People, or Extreme Ownership, or like any book, or some fucking David Goggins book or something, or Tony Robbins, like just any kind of self-improvement book.
Yeah, because like I completely understand that, yes, the classics have bigger ideas that are very important to... But
the teachers are too incompetent and unintelligent to have any kind of original or novel idea on those. They just copy. Remember that the teacher's job is to just like learn what she's read in the textbook, or and then just like read that to you and then get you to... It's like Chinese whispers. You're just like mimicking each other. Like monkeys yelling at each other and mimicking each other. Like, how is that? No one's having a creative thought. In fact, we could go on a whole other tangent about like how creativity and individuality is kind of stomped out of you in school.
I think something that would introduce like critical thinking and
brilliant skepticism.
Or I was going to say,
philosophy,
that sort of thing.
Ethics.
Would be really interesting.
Like, why did I read... We didn't read The Great Gatsby, but we read other stupid books like that. Why did we read stuff like that? We read some book called Cloud Street, which I don't know if anyone's read that book. It's fucking shit.
I haven't read it.
It's got some great ideas, and I love the author and the way he did it. But like, I'm just reading it and just being like, I don't give a fuck about this. And maybe I'd like the book if I read it now. I probably would like the book. To be fair to the book, it's actually quite interesting. But like, at the time, I was like, I don't give a fuck about this. Why can't I fucking read about like Aristotle, Socrates, we've started listening. We've barely started, but we've started listening to Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, haven't we? Why the hell is that not taught? Why is Stoicism not taught?
I think because
then,
the
like,
school
you would get
system-
Stoic and then be like, I don't want to be in school, right? I'm leaving, bye.
I was going to say, like, a lot of that is, like, there can be complex stuff, but I think the school system would just make it so, which is an excuse, but so unbelievably boring that, like...
They'd ruin everything.
They would. They just make
Probably.
you hate all of, like, the cool shit out there.
I mean, not necessarily. Like, people like some classes in school. Yeah. Nah, you make a point.
Anyway, what else? Important subjects. I think one you said before that was really good. Some sort of,
How
like,
to start your own business. But what were you going to say?
like health, nutrition.
Yep. For sure. Although they'll just
I was
going to
say
do a
that's
shit job
a
and just
really
do a fucking, let's like spin the government fucking
Dangerous.
dog shit nonsense
Like
about like, let's just
carbs
eat as
and
many carbs as
bread.
we can.
Yeah.
Meat is
food
evil
pyramid.
and gives you cancer.
Yeah.
What other fucking shit do they say? Avoid fat. Let's just run that. And fucking smoke cigarettes, kids. Oh, no, we changed our mind on that one. Don't. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Go outside and wear 3 masks. Oh, wait, no, we'll change our mind on that one next month.
Yeah,
Just wait.
We'll say it would be good with the caveat of if they gave good advice,
Yeah, which they won't.
which would be.
But we're
otherwise
pretending
dangerous.
that they will.
Sure.
Let's pretend that they will. So then nutrition should be in there. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Nutrition.
Especially in America. Hey, America, listen up. Like, you guys should absolutely be teaching how to avoid obesity, how much diabetes fucks you up and shapes like decades, not years, decades off your life. Why your fucking COVID. Here's my hot take. It's not even a fucking hot take. COVID death rate would be nowhere near what it is in your country if you weren't all fucking diabetic and obese, for fuck's sakes. And that's not me having a go at you guys, because Australia's
pretty
just as
shit,
fucking bad. We're just an island, so COVID hasn't come here yet. But it will. So yeah, nutrition, absolutely. Why diabetes is fucking horrible for you. Why obesity is horrible for you. Why you should be caring about that more than any of the other fucking nonsense bullshit you pretend to care about.
Yeah.
Like stuff like that. Absolutely. That needs to be taught.
Yeah,
like,
just basic things like things that I had to learn when I started losing weight, like calories and body fat percentage
Yep.
and
Yep.
all of that sort of stuff. I think like,
imagine if kids were like aware of like, the Coke or something that they're drinking, how many calories are actually in that can of Coke.
yeah, and how long
like,
it takes.
how
I
long
think
you have to run to burn that off.
just a fucking long time.
Yeah.
And then I think also like how to meal prep, how to create a workout plan. Like
That might be getting a little too like narrowed down, although I guess we're implying that you have like the
you have
kids'
a
whole
long time.
yeah, we're saying you got like 13 years to teach them all this stuff. So in that case, yeah, absolutely, of course, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you could definitely get that in there. Because I think I think if we look at what's mostly missing, it's how to deal with the realities of life. School does not teach. School is not life. I've said that exact quote. I've lost count of how many clients I've had that, where they're talking about how bad their childhood, their school time was, and how they were bullied, and how they're working on getting over it, and all this kind of stuff. And the first thing I say is, you need to teach yourself, or you need to remind yourself that school is not real life. Whatever happened to you in school was not real life. You were in prison. It's not real life. It doesn't prepare you for the real world. Like, your life has to start now. Forget about school. But in saying all that, well, let's focus on me saying that, because school doesn't prepare you for real life. Like, everything we're just saying, we're talking through life skills. But school doesn't seem to give a fuck about what's happening outside of school. School doesn't care about life. School really doesn't care. It's got the curriculum, and like, the world can be falling apart outside, and it's like, well, that's great. Maybe we'll talk about it a little bit, but we got to focus on like learning these rocks and memorizing these clouds in the sky, and coming up with, stupid rhymes for like the mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell.
I learned so many acronyms.
Yeah. Nonsense, basically. And so I would like a drilling down of these like life skills, or how to deal with the realities of life. We've covered on most of it. Like, we've touched on most of it. Like, how to deal with your parents getting a divorce. Like, how to deal with the death in the family. How to deal with your dog dying. Why is there not like 1 or 2 lessons at some point on like, here's what to do if your dog dies. Like, here's how we can, don't stress. Like, death is part. Why is
Life
death?
and
Why is
Yeah.
Why you don't talk about life and death? Why don't you talk about like why your grandma can't come to see you anymore? Like,
Just because it's messy, because people are very up and about religion and what, they
you don't have to touch on any of that stuff. I'm just saying, okay, cover it from like a mental health point of view. Here's how to deal with it. It's going to be very traumatic. Here's how to deal with like if you only have one parent. Here's how to deal with if your childhood, like, and yeah, maybe don't do this shit when you're like 8. Maybe wait till they're at a point where they can handle it. But at some point, how to deal with the parents' divorce, how to deal with daddy abusing mummy, how to deal with like, and you cover it in a nice way. You're just like, you got to talk to people. You got to talk to your friends. You got to talk to, you can come talk to me. You can go on fucking forums and shit. Here's how to deal with that shit. There's a school counselor that you can come and see. I feel like that stuff is just ignored. Let's sweep it under the carpet, and it's the elephant in the room we all pretend isn't there. And like, there's a reason that little Johnny in the back is like acting like a shithead every single lesson and being violent in the playground and shit. It's because his parents fucking beat each other up, or his dad left his mum or whatever. And you just pretend that isn't the reality. You just pretend he's a shit kid. Like, you're the shit kid. You as the teacher, you're the shit kid. To be fair, the teacher went through the school system too, but that doesn't excuse them being a shit adult or being shit at their job. And I don't necessarily blame teachers. Teachers are shit generally, but I think most people are shit at most jobs they have. Most average people are shit at their jobs.
Yes.
That would be the best way of phrasing it. Most people are average. By definition, you have to be average. The average person is average. And I don't think that's good enough in the school system. Just like in the military, you don't tolerate average because that will get people killed.
Yeah. I think
in a hospital, you can't tolerate average. I don't know why you tolerate average in the school system.
Yeah. If you redo the system, I think a key part of it would be having a far higher barrier to entry.
Yeah. And ongoing support, ongoing training, like, just really drilling into them the message, like, these are the fucking future. Like, you got to actually give a shit about these kids. If you feel like you don't care about them, like, you got to have support services for the teachers. You got to have like counseling for the counselors, like counseling for the teachers, and say like, if you feel like you're getting jaded and you feel like you don't care that much, like, take some time off. Like, come talk to us. Like, we'll reinvigorate it. Like, let's figure out how you can be a better teacher. Let's give you bonuses. You have to give bonuses, and not just like arbitrary stupid bonuses, like proper bonuses. Like, you know what I mean? Like, stuff like that. Support networks, of course, need to be there for the teachers. I'm not saying it's all the teachers' fault. It's not. They're just operating in the system that's shit. But then I also can't cut them too much slack, because there are plenty of great teachers who work within the shitty system and do the best fucking job they can and absolutely raise good adults, of course. I think one of them, I won't say he was the best teacher of all time, but he clearly gave a shit, and that's all that really matters. You just want to know the person actually gives a shit about you. Isn't just going through the motions and like reinforcing the curriculum that they don't really care about, that no one really cares about, and we all just kind of... School is very much in that way. It's like a bureaucracy, isn't it? You're all just kind of like pushing paper. You're all just kind of going through the motions. No one actually cares. No one really has a vision of where it's going. You can't tell if anyone's spinning their wheels or not. You all just rock up and go like, well, we all got to do this. Let's do it. Roll in this together. Let's go. Yeah. There's no like performance measurements. I mean, there's tests and stuff like that, but that doesn't really matter. That's just testing your ability to like say what they want you to say. Yeah. I guess other things like how to write a resume. We covered that, didn't we?
Yeah, like job hunting. I think that falls under life skills.
Yeah.
I think leadership skills would be great.
Leadership, yep. How to be honest with people. That falls into communication, which is in psychology and making friends. Yep. How to find healthy relationships. What to do if you're in a bad relationship. In school especially, for fuck's sakes. Like, here's what a relationship looks like. Why is that not taught?
Yeah.
Like, you just got to figure it out yourself. How to not get manipulated. Yeah, especially in the current age, like how to not get talked into sending fucking nude pictures when you're 13 years old to your boyfriend who's pressuring you, like how to deal with that shit. Why is that not taught? Why is that not a lesson? They just come in and like half-ass it, and they just say, well, kids, don't send nudes.
I think proper sex ed.
Yeah. And not just like the weird creepy sex ed that they teach you.
About like how you get pregnant and then nothing else.
And why like every STD will kill you. And why abstinence. My school, and it wasn't even a fucking religious school, it was like a public school. And Australia is very non-religious. For those of you in America, like Australia is so non-religious. We're so secular. And even in my school, they literally said like abstinence is the only 100% guaranteed way to avoid all STDs. So it is what, like, it's recommended. And it's like, fuck off. You tell my teacher was pregnant too.
We didn't have that, but yeah.
My teacher was pregnant. And it's like, you can't be pulling that shit. You fucking lying scumbag. You can't be like telling us we know you fuck. And we can see you fuck.
Yeah.
You can't just it's like a lazy way of doing it. It's like, well, to be uncomfortable if the kids all fuck each other. And to be fair, no one wants all the kids to get pregnant. But the answer isn't, so let's not tell them about conception.
And I think also, and again, I know this is like
Contraception, not conception.
maybe a hard one to navigate because, you know, if you're on like different political or religious views, it can be a bit hard, but like different like types of sex, like being gay, like dealing with.
Does that shit get covered? I think it does though in health classes.
I didn't experience personally. Because I think there'd be a lot of overlap with the mental health stuff. It's like...
Yeah, that's just a mental health category. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like how to deal with like... How to fit in if you have no hobbies. How to fit in if you have no friends. How to fit in if like you're like one of the few black dudes in a predominantly white school. How to deal with like being the only Asian in the class or something. How to deal with like being super short. How to deal with being like... I don't know, like any... You know, stuff like that. Like how to deal with being the odd one out, basically.
Yeah.
Which will just be a process that falls in like how to make friends. Another one, because I spoke to a friend of mine, the one who rhymes with Timmy.
Yeah.
Keep my friend Jimmy anonymous so no one knows that it's Jimmy. And my friend Jimmy, who isn't Jimmy, he rhymes with Timmy, he said, I was having a conversation with him, and he said, He talked about homework and how they pile more and more homework on you covering shit that doesn't really matter. I think homework is the biggest crime. Get rid of that. Abolish that. I read a couple of studies. I don't have them offhand, but they're showing that like homework didn't actually make a difference. In a couple of schools that experimented with no homework, it made no difference. And so it's like, we really are just, this is like some bureaucratic shit right here. We're just doing it because like everyone else is doing it. We're just doing it for the sake of it. And as Jimmy pointed out, the students who would be disciplined enough or self-interested enough to go and do extra research on stuff outside of school hours can't because you've loaded them with homework.
Yeah. I was very much overwhelmed by homework.
So was I. I was fucking overwhelmed. And I used to have nightmares about homework and shit like that.
Yeah. And they would say, particularly like the last couple of years, they're like, you should be doing like 4 hours a night. And
I know. And I was like, bro, I don't have that time. Like, what the fuck? How am I... That's like until bedtime.
You can't have any other commitments. And I did have other commitments. So
did I, yeah.
I was just like tearing my hair out because I like played music and I played sport and you just don't have any time.
And I can this one really like click when he said that really hit home because I had so many extracurricular interests because I'm someone that's self-driven and I love knowing things and everything like that. And so I taught myself to program like when I was probably like, I don't know, like 12. I started when I was 12. I built my first website that I got paid for when I was 14. A guy paid me like $500. And you got to remember, this was like, what, like 16 years ago. That's a lot of money. I was like fucking, to be fair, that was like 6 months worth of work. I did a lot for that guy. I built like 2 websites for him, but he gave me like $500. And I was like, holy shit. Like, and that was entirely me. No one taught me that but me. And I also taught myself how to make music in FL Studio. I taught myself like a bunch of stuff like that. Mostly programming. I learned like HTML, PHP. I learned like bits of JavaScript. Back in the day when Flash, anyone who knows what Flash is, I used to like program for Flash. It was a programming language called ActionScript, which is pretty much just JavaScript, pretty much exactly the same. And like I taught myself all that. And do you know how fucking hard it is to do that shit when you also have like hours of homework? And I wanted to just deep dive. I would have given anything to just spend like 12 hours a day learning how to program, learning how to do shit on the computer. Like, that was what I was interested in. And I would have made how much money? If school had just said, like, yeah, do whatever you want, fine, go away. Do what, like, focus on your own shit. You can have, like, 6 hours a day free to yourself. And then we'll also teach. So maybe that's what we should add in.
Yeah.
Less school. Like, it doesn't need to be 6 hours. I don't think school needs to be 6 hours. I think 4 hours you can easily get all this done. Maybe 3.
Yeah.
And then you get the rest of the time doing self-taught. Yeah, what were you going to say?
I will say that a lot, I'm going to say majority, having worked with kids, 80 to 90% aren't self-driven like that though. And they would like to
and so maybe you make it like... Yeah, but is that a bad thing? The kids. We're talking about children here. Why are we putting children in prison? And again, we can have a whole libertarian argument about this. Why are we putting children in prison and saying, well, you know, they want to go climb trees, so we're going to stop them climbing trees and running around and making friends with each other and exploring the world and building sandcastles and that. We've got to keep them in school because otherwise they'll enjoy themselves.
Yeah, it depends what age you're talking about. I think up until like 12, you should just kind of be able to like learn the basics and then like
I don't know why
fuck around and play.
a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old is going to school for 6 hours. That's criminal to me. That's like literally,
agreed.
that's like a massive injustice and evil committed on children. Like that's literally child abuse. I don't know how anyone doesn't see it as that. Non-stop. And the kid's like, well, you know, it's only like, I've only got to fucking get through the next 10 years of this shit. It's like, fuck me. Or 8 years of this shit. Sure, after a certain point, fine. Again, that wasn't a discussion we said we weren't going to have. We said we weren't going to talk about like whether or not we can just abolish school or do some other.
Sure.
So maybe we are cheating by even saying like, oh, less school. Maybe we have to operate under the premise of like, it has to be 6 hours. So then I would just say a free period every day.
Yeah.
And you're all in a room and you get to just study whatever you want. Maybe it's like research and you all have to go on the computers and research whatever you want. And if you fuck around, well, that's on you.
Yeah. I would, particularly in the later years, if there was some ability to specialize more.
Yeah.
So say there was like something that was like the school's like, we don't have anyone that can teach this. Like you can have 2 hours a day where you can go and find somewhere or someone that can like almost outsource the teaching. So you can learn that specialized thing that you want to know.
But you don't have to know it. You can just like at this point, I am confident enough that I can teach anyone anything.
Sure.
Anything. Literally anything. Even something that I have zero experience in. How? Because I can show them how to research. Yep. So you need someone who's a researcher. Like that could be like a fucking librarian or just like someone who like, and by the way, researcher is literally a job. Researcher is a profession. There are people who do professional research, usually for like podcasts, you know, like the Joe Rogan podcast. Like every podcaster will have a researcher or a team of researchers. Most newspapers, like that's what a journalist is. Someone who's like a researcher. You put that person in charge of the free period, and then anyone can come up to them and say like, hey, I want to learn more about, I don't know, quantum mechanics. And the researcher's like, well, I know fuck all about that. But they'll be like, yeah, no worries. Like, okay, so like go on Google, type this, try this. This like search engine here is really good for this. Go on YouTube, like there's this channel, like you roughly know I can tell you right now some quantum mechanic channels, right? Like I can tell you roughly like where to start looking, and then you'd like kind of connect the dots from there and figure out what you're doing.
Sure.
And so you just need like a researcher who's in control of like, I don't know, 30 kids or whatever. And the kids can come up and be like, hey, do you know this? And then maybe that researcher can give lessons. You give like a few lessons, you give like a half-hour lesson, and then you guys have half hour to go off and do whatever you want to do. So the half-hour lesson is like how to fact check, how to research, always confirm the source, you know, don't believe everything you read on the internet, you know, how people lie, how people manipulate, how fucking, I don't know, China is brilliant with fucking CCP bots and like spreading misinformation and shit, where you got to look out for that. How half of what the shit on the internet is like a paid sponsorship, and so you got to look down the bottom and see like, is this sponsored content? Like stuff like that.
Yeah.
Do a half-hour lesson on that and then go and do your own research. I feel like that's pretty much everything. This was a very big ramble.
Yeah.
It was meant to be a bit of fun. I tried not to be too negative. I think I was a little bit negative, but I think it's going to happen when you're passionate about something, especially like putting children in mandatory re-education camps. Education camps. Yeah. So it's something I feel very strongly about. A lot of people feel very strongly about. If you listen to this episode and you're like, yeah, my school was fine. Like, I'm really happy for you. I genuinely am. But that's I'm not going to call you selfish, the person saying that, but like, it's a very solipsistic, self-centered way of looking at something. If you say like, well, it was good for me, you're getting that's happening a lot now in countries with like heavy lockdowns and harsh lockdowns. People are saying, well, it's fine for me to be at home. I don't mind. And it's
you can say it's good for me, but you need to acknowledge that other people suffered.
If you just say like, it's good for me, but like, I'm so sorry you went through that, then, you know, that's cool. That's like where you want to be at. But if you're saying like, oh, it's not that bad, dude, you're just complaining, which a lot of people are saying that right now with like lockdowns and stuff. Yeah. It's not that bad. Come on, stop whinging. Just stay inside. Stay the fuck home. It's really not that hard. And then, you know, you say, I'm literally suicidal because of this. And they're like, oh, cry, baby. And it's like, okay, like we're not interfacing in the same reality here. Like you're in your own world. I'm in my world. That's fine. So that was what we think the school system could be. Just some like little changes. I'm sure you guys, okay, maybe we should do a shout out. So if anyone wants to tell us what they would do different, either leave a comment, go down, you'll have to go to the innerwinnershow.com if you want to leave a comment. So that will be at theinnerwinnershow.com/205 for episode 205. Just leave a comment down the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can email me or something. Actually, don't email me. No, you can email me. Email me if you want to. Or leave a comment. And just give us some feedback. Like, what would you do different? Do you agree with the stuff we said? How was school for you? I'm genuinely interested in that. If it was really bad, what was bad? If it was really good, like, let me know.
Yeah.
And any extra classes you think we missed, any extra life skill classes you think we missed, or if you think we like covered everything, if you think we completely missed the mark, tell us. And now you got to do a shout out at the end of every episode.
I would like to shout out to, there's 2 teachers that I had.
They're not listening.
Well, I know, but I had some very...
Imagine if they were.
Definitely not. I had some really brilliant teachers in the last couple of years of high school. And we talked about it before, but like people that actually gave a shit, people that actually gave decent advice, that were very honest and real. And they were a big part of why I'm very passionate about my art.
Yeah.
And all of that.
And you were going to say that? Good shit. So shout out to Mr. Bronson and Mr. Smith. That was their names, right?
No.
It was. And I'm going to do a shout out to Pussy. I like pussy. Adios, guys. Guys.